You keep telling yourself you're lost, that you don't know who you are or where you're going. But maybe you're not lost. Maybe you've simply never been allowed to be yourself. From the moment we're born, the world begins shaping us into what it needs, not into who we truly are. You were taught how to behave, how to speak, how to think, and most dangerously, what parts of yourself were acceptable and what parts needed to be hidden. So you adjusted. You learned how to please. You became who they needed you to be. But in the process, you abandoned yourself. That ache you feel inside, that confusion, that constant sense of emptiness, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've been disconnected from your true self for so long that now, when life slows down, there's silence. Not peace, just silence because there's no one there. No inner voice, no solid sense of identity. And so you say you're lost. But what if you're not? What if you've just never been found? Because the real you was never given a chance to exist. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about how this happens and how to finally return to yourself. As a child, you were not just loved, you were trained. Trained to be polite, to smile, to obey, to never make others uncomfortable. Not because you were bad, but because adults couldn't handle your full truth. Maybe you were too sensitive, too intense, too curious, too loud, too honest. So they labeled you, corrected you, shamed you. And little by little, you got the message. Who I really am is not okay. So you put on a mask. You learned to suppress the parts of yourself that weren't accepted. You shrunk your emotions. You hid your needs. You started performing, and you got really good at it. You became the good kid, the strong one, the helper, the achiever. Roles that made others proud of you, but never let you be you. And the worst part? You did it so well that you forgot it was a mask. Now, as an adult, that mask feels like your identity. But behind it, there's still a self you buried to survive. A self that never got to live. This isn't just about the past. It's about a lifelong pattern of self-abandonment disguised as being fine. But the body remembers. The soul remembers. And it's quietly begging you to take the mask off, even if you don't know what's underneath yet. Here's the truth. Adapting was never your fault. You weren't being fake. You were surviving. Children are wired to seek connection at all costs. When love feels conditional, we don't question the love. We question ourselves. We start to think, if I were better, quieter, less emotional, maybe they'd stay. Maybe they'd approve. Maybe they'd love me more. So we shapeshift. We edit ourselves down to what the world finds palatable. We become easy to love, but painfully hard to recognize from within. This kind of self-abandonment becomes so normal that we stop even realizing we're doing it. We enter relationships where we don't ask for what we need. We pursue careers that impress others but leave us empty. We smile when we want to scream. We stay when we want to leave, because we've learned that being authentic is dangerous and being acceptable is safe. But safety like this comes with a price. You slowly lose your sense of identity. You look in the mirror and see someone who looks familiar but feels like a stranger. You begin to ask, what do I even want? And draw a blank. You're not broken. You're exhausted from living in a version of yourself that was built to protect you, not express you. And if you're here, listening to this, maybe a part of you is ready to come back home to yourself. This space exists for exactly that kind of journey. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing. Let's keep exploring the parts of you that were never allowed to speak. When you've spent a lifetime hiding your truth to stay safe, authenticity doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a threat. Being truly seen can feel more terrifying than being misunderstood. Because the real fear isn't that people won't like you. It's that they might reject the real you. Not the version you edited, not the one you polished, but the one underneath the performance. The raw, imperfect, emotional self. You may have convinced the world you're fine, that you're strong, that you've got it all together. But inside, you're quietly screaming for someone to see past all that. Someone to say, you don't have to earn love here. You're enough as you are. But here's the paradox. The more you hide, the lonelier you become. Because no one can truly connect with a mask, not even the people who care about you. Real intimacy only begins when the pretending ends. But to stop pretending, you have to risk being vulnerable. And that's hard when life has taught you that vulnerability leads to pain. So you stay stuck, longing to be known, but terrified of being exposed. Craving authenticity, but addicted to approval. And that's why healing feels so confusing. You want to find yourself, but doing that means undoing everything you built to survive. So the question is, are you ready to be seen? Even if it shakes the identity you've spent years creating. Because on the other side of that fear is freedom, and the beginning of a self that's finally real. At some point, you stopped asking who you were and started asking who you needed to be. That shift is subtle, but it changes everything. You stopped exploring. You started performing. You became the achiever, the caretaker, the perfectionist, the peacemaker. Identities that made you feel safe, needed, or praised. But none of them were you. They were just layers you put on, hoping to finally feel worthy. This is what psychologists call the false self. A version of you that is functional, polite, impressive, but empty on the inside. Because it was never born out of joy. It was built out of fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of disappointing others. Fear that who you really are is not enough to be loved. And that fear runs deep. It's why you second-guess yourself constantly. Why you minimize your needs, downplay your pain, and silence your voice. It's why you sometimes feel like you're floating through life, present, but not fully alive. The false self knows how to succeed, but not how to feel. It knows how to work, but not how to rest. It knows how to be liked, but not how to be known. That's why the more you achieve, the emptier you feel, because deep down, you sense the truth. No amount of external validation can fill the absence of your real self. You've been searching for answers in the world, but the question has always been inside you. Who am I when I stop performing? The answer won't come all at once. But the moment you start asking, you've already begun the return. There's a kind of grief no one talks about. It's not about losing someone else. It's about losing yourself. Or more precisely, never getting the chance to fully become who you were meant to be. You look back on your life and realize so much of what you did was out of fear, not passion. So many choices were about pleasing others, not honoring yourself. You wonder who you might have been. If only you had felt safe to be that person. And that realization hurts. There's grief in noticing how your creativity was silenced, how your joy was dimmed, how your voice was softened just to keep the peace. You mourn the childhood where you had to be mature too early, the friendships where you hid your real opinions, the years you spent chasing things that never truly mattered to you. This isn't self-pity, it's self-awareness. It's the necessary mourning of a life built on survival rather than self-expression. But here's the part most people miss. Grief is not the end. It's the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. You can't reclaim yourself without first grieving what you lost. And sometimes the deepest healing begins not with motivation, but with mourning. So, if you feel sad, heavy, or even angry, that's not weakness. It's your soul waking up. It's the beginning of truth finding its way back to you. And from that place of honesty, something powerful can finally begin. You can start living as who you really are, not just who you were trained to be. One of the most damaging messages you received growing up wasn't always said out loud. It was in the eye rolls, the silence, the tension in the room when you spoke your truth. It was in the way people shut down your emotions, laughed at your dreams, or told you to calm down when you were just being real. Eventually, you believed it. I'm too much. Too emotional, too intense, too complicated. So you began to dilute yourself. You toned down your passion. You swallowed your tears. You filtered every word before it left your mouth, hoping to be more manageable. But let's tell the truth now. You were never too much. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't hold space for the depth of your being. When someone doesn't understand their own emotions, they'll always be uncomfortable with yours. When someone lives behind a mask, your authenticity will feel threatening. So they won't celebrate your truth. They'll shrink from it. That was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their fear. And the cost of internalizing that fear is high. Because when you reject your truth to stay connected, you lose connection with yourself. You silence the voice that was trying to guide you all along. But that voice, your real self, isn't gone. It's been whispering beneath the noise, waiting for you to listen. You don't have to keep editing your existence just to fit in. You weren't born to be tolerated. You were born to be seen. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world convinced you to be someone else. Think back. Before the roles, before the pressure, before the masks. There was a version of you that was raw, curious, loud, soft, free. You didn't second-guess your laughter. You didn't apologize for dreaming. You didn't feel guilty for needing love or rest or space. That version of you didn't measure worth by productivity, didn't fear judgment for being honest, didn't hide in shame for simply existing. And then slowly, it changed. You adapted. You hardened. You forgot. But here's the beautiful thing. Your essence was never erased. It was only buried beneath expectations, fear, and performance. The real you is still there, still whole, still waiting. Returning to yourself isn't a straight path. It's a messy, slow process of unlearning everything that taught you self-abandonment. It means letting go of the praise you got for being strong. It means disappointing people who only loved the version of you that never said no. It's not easy. but it's worth it. Because when you start to live from that inner truth, even in small moments, something shifts. You stop chasing life. You start feeling it. You begin to speak with your real voice. You start making choices that reflect your values, not just your fears. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What feels true to me?" That's the beginning of your return. Not a reinvention, but a remembering. There's a moment in every healing journey when you stop asking for permission. When you stop waiting for the world to finally say, "Okay, now you're enough." That moment is quiet, but powerful. It's when you realize you don't need to keep proving your worth. You don't have to shrink to be loved. You don't have to make sense to everyone around you. You are allowed to exist as you are. You are allowed to want different things, to feel deeply, to change, to walk away, to not explain yourself all the time. You are allowed to stop performing and just be. The life you've been chasing isn't built on becoming more. It's built on becoming true. The relationships you've always wanted don't require you to be perfect. They require you to be real. The peace you've been searching for doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from accepting yourself fully. And no, not everyone will understand. Some people will fall away when you stop being who they needed you to be. But the ones who remain, they'll love you for your truth, not your performance. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply remembering who you are. And that is a sacred, brave, and beautiful thing. You're not lost. You're finally on your way home. Maybe the most radical act of healing isn't changing yourself, but coming back to yourself. Not fixing, not forcing, just returning. Returning to the quiet voice you silenced, the soft emotions you buried, the strange, wild, beautiful parts of you that never fit into the boxes they gave you. It's not always a dramatic awakening. Sometimes it's subtle. You say no when you used to say yes. You rest without guilt. You stop apologizing for your joy, your sadness, your truth. You stop chasing someone else's version of success and start redefining your own. You stop trying to be impressive and start being honest. And in those moments, something begins to shift. You no longer need to find yourself because you finally feel yourself. That's the real freedom. Not living without fear, but living aligned with your truth, even when fear is present. It doesn't mean life becomes perfect, but it becomes real. And that realness is where connection happens, where purpose begins, where peace is possible. So, if you felt lost for a long time, if you've wandered through roles, identities, expectations, this is your sign that you were never lost. You were just far from home. And now, you're coming back, piece by piece, breath by breath, truth by truth. You are not a project, you are a person. And that person, the one beneath it all, has always been worth coming home to.